slavery is a very touchy subject in our world, in modern times, because of the racial overtones. But actually, historically, racial slavery is quite the minority of the slavery that's occurred over the history of the human race. We have examples which most people would not really be familiar with, such as the enslavement of Italian prisoners of war in Britain after World War II, and the British government was quite reluctant to let them go, I think because they were providing free labour. I think there was also enslavement effectively of German prisoners of war, although the things done to them by our side, particularly Eisenhower, won't talk about the Soviets because they were absolute brutes, but those matters are very much left unsaid in the media, in books. We also have men like Thomas Sowell, the African-American academic, who refers to slavery being basically a feature of more advanced societies preying on more backward societies. So the Slavs, from whom the term slave comes, being enslaved for long periods, up to fairly recent centuries. And we have in these days, we have the Congolese Africans enslaving the Congolese pygmies. And after our brave Royal Air Force and French Air Forces helped destroy a functioning Libya, we now have Arabs enslaving Africans. And so slavery is quite a present thing, even in our modern society. And of course, in ancient times, it was not something that was done in an outlaw fashion in the way that happens in Libya or in Congo, but it was entrenched and lawful, systematic. So the question would be, for this new religion which was coming into the world, Christianity, Catholicism, what would be the attitude to slavery? And one might think that, well, one would call for its absolute overthrow. But in fact, that was not the case. I'll just quote from St. Peter and St. Paul. Peter says in his first letter, chapter 2, verse 18, "You who are slaves must be submissive to your masters and show all respect, not only to those who are kind and considerate, but to those who are hard to please. It does a man credit when he bears undeserved ill treatment with the thought of God in his heart. If you do wrong and are punished for it, your patience is nothing to boast of. It is the patience of the innocent sufferer that wins credit in God's sight." So, we haven't, and this is, then Peter goes on to say this is to be compared with Christ's suffering. He says, "Indeed, you are engaged to this by the call of Christ. He suffered for our sakes and left you his own example. You were to follow in his footsteps." That's one apostle, and just to confirm that he is echoed by the other pillar of Christianity. In Colossians, St. Paul speaks, "You who are slaves," this is chapter 3, verse 22, "You who are slaves, give your human masters full obedience, not with that show of service which tries to win human favour, but single-mindedly, in fear of the Lord. Work at all your tasks with a will, reminding yourselves that you are doing it for the Lord, not for men. And you may be sure that the Lord will give the portion he has allotted to you in return. Be as slaves with Christ for your master." And there Paul means the master Jesus. "Whoever does wrong will be requited for the wrong done. There are no human preferences with God." And he goes on in chapter 4, which immediately follows. "And you who are masters, give your slaves just and equitable treatment. You know well enough that you too have a master in heaven. Thus we can see that Christianity is not a revolutionary religion in the sense of the French Revolution of 1789. This was not to overthrow the old order and to re-establish a new order. It is really to work within the present order to improve the situation of people. And one can be in disagreement with that, one can be in favour of it. But what matters is, that's the gospel position. And the question then is, where do these pillars of Christianity, Peter and Paul, get this from? Well, one would hope they don't make it up out of whole cloth. One would hope they get it from our Lord Jesus. And in fact, Maria Valtorta's visions show us that they do.